Hey YouTube land, I thought I'd do a little video on this welder because I always see the, I'm not sure if you know how to say it, Amico. I always see the 160 on YouTube being, explained and stuff, and this is just the bigger brother. It's the CTS 180, and I mean, there's not much difference to it, just a little more oomph, I guess you'd say. That's the manual I got with it. I'm just kind of going to go through it and maybe be a little more geeky on a few things. You can do 240 or 110, and I thought maybe you have to rewire something inside the welder or change plugs, but all it is this is, I'll show you the adapter cable. That will be for that's a basic welder plug, 3-prong welder. 2 hots, well, I don't want to call them phases, but it's the 2 120s of your panel. So you use a double pole breaker, and that'd be one side of the breaker, the other side of the breaker, and that is your ground. But you do not have to rewire it. So evidently this will take the 120 through 240, and if you want to adapt it over to the 120, you just throw that on, and then it turns it into a normal household plug. So there's no rewiring this, changing plug-ins, changing connections, flipping the switch, or anything in the welder, from what I understand. So I mean, there's nothing from the manual that would say anything different. So I'll show you a few things of it. You have this breaker here, and it's actually rated, it's a C63, and it's actually rated as a 63 amp breaker, but you would never even need that on 220. But anyway, you've got your ground lug, so if you want to say hook on a copper wire and a small ground rod, you can shove that into the ground wherever you're working, even though you have, I'm not sure why, but even though you have a ground on your machine, well, you should have, so maybe that's just a redundancy thing. But anyhow, then you've got the argon, well, a drain, the argon, and then the air. And a similar thing with this one is the 160 is he's got this little cover here, and that's where your filter separator is for the welder. And then you have the readout. Sorry, I'm in the light of it. So you have the flip it up to cut. You got the cut, plasma cut, stick, and TIG. Got your amperage settings here. Got your regulator here. You need to pull it out to make it work. The 160, I know, if you ever watch Mike Festiva's channel, if you don't, I'd go check his out. He's got a real good explanation on the 160, and it's pretty much, potatoes, the same kind of animal. So if you want to check him out, he's a real good guy on YouTube. He says his works pretty low on pressure, so it doesn't, on the plasma, it's not real crazy on your air compressor. So if you had like a small air compressor, it wouldn't have a big hard time keeping up. Pan through there one more time as I'm looking for stuff. I'll kind of show you. I haven't pulled all this stuff out, but that's the cable you get for the argon. And this is the monstrous, I don't know, the thing's like 12 inches long. I'm not sure if you guys could tell me if that's normal. It's been a while since I did any any stick welding, but this thing is ridiculously huge. It's just a monster. I don't know. I would look for something smaller myself, but I don't know. It just seems ridiculously huge for what it is. Now, I did see somebody complain about this. It was on the plasma track. Just showing that here for you. This is the plasma, same thing as I looked at on the 160. One guy I saw showed where this gas line comes in right behind the micro switch here, it blew a hole through. I'm not sure if there was a ground, some sort of, I don't know. Those little micro switches are just pressed together, so I don't know if a voltage jumped across into the micro switch and blew that out. But I think I saw it on Amazon on one of the reviews, and he showed a picture of that happening. So what I'm going to probably end up doing, and I'll probably take this all apart, and then it's got a little metal piece, not quite like this one, but I'm going to wrap, it's kind of underneath here, this where it kind of crimps onto the hose. I'm going to wrap that up with electrical cable. And the other thing I'm going to redo is take this apart. See how they kind of did this? Hopefully it'll focus in on that. It's like the wire's not even, I mean, it's all just out there. And even, I don't know if you can tell, if I can get the sunlight on it. They nicked it when they spliced it, or they tried to cut the sheet in it. And then this here is the ground clamp. It's kind of monstrously sized too, but I'm not so upset at that. I'm not going to be holding on to that, but I'm not sure how well it's gonna work. And then the other thing is this is the TIG torch, and you get some cups, and I don't even know all the names for all this stuff anymore. So that's the TIG torch there. So again, same thing. If you want to go check out Mike's video, he's got the same stuff on there. There we go. And what's hiding in here? Now the difference is, look at how they did this one. It's like they got it and they put a nice little sleeve on it and clamped, and it's all nice and tight. That's what I'm going to do for the plasma torch, just because it needs it. And they do give you this little stick. There's actually, some super small tungsten there. I'm just going to pitch that in the garbage. That is worth nothing to me. And this is the manual, and shows you, oops, that's the 160 there. There's the 180. And it shows you can 40 amps output on the plasma, up to 40, 140 to 180 depending on what voltage you pick, and then 130 to 160 on the stick. And then your rated input current on these is 33. I mean, the highest is about 36. So I mean, if you wanted to, you could get away with probably a 10-2 with ground wire, and if you weren't running at full throttle, you'd probably be okay. But being that this is like a duty cycle machine, kind of like a motor, I wouldn't recommend that. I mean, if you want to be super careful with a 10 gauge, that's up to you. But just make sure you protect it with the proper breaker. But I would say a minimum of a 40 amp breaker. But for myself, I'm going to buy a 50 amp breaker, because that's what the plug is actually designed for, is a 50 amp welder plug. And I'm going to buy a 6-3 cable. All conductors are insulated, and it's got a pretty good efficiency on it. It's got 85. Fan cooled now. I haven't checked it out myself, but the fan cool it only comes in. It's a thermally controlled fan, so once it gets hot, it comes on. If it's the same way as the 160, because that's how Mike explained his 160. So. Right now, that's as far as I'm going with that. This video should be a little longer. I'm going to show you a few things, show you what I did to this plasma gun, plasma torch, and cleaning up this and the other end of the other end of the plasma torch. And that's about all I've got. I end up buying a Harris, maybe a 601 regulator. I believe that's what it is, for my argon tank. And I bought a little 40-gallon argon tank, or 40 cubic foot, I guess they call it, for an argon tank. And that's pretty much all I got for right now. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it as just one video or splice it together or not. So catch you guys later, or guys and girls. Catch you later. So, excuse me. So I took apart the plasma torch, and they already did that. So evidently it must have been a known issue with these torches. So what happened was there's a metal piece in here, and somehow it arced across through the switch, and I don't know if it took out a circuit board or what it did, but anyway, they've already got this, looks heat shrink tubing all over that, and then they taped up here. So that's all good. And then I took apart the end connector, and I even put I put some tape on it just to make it a little thicker to where it clamps down. And you can see, if I can get it in there, I shorten those way up so they won't, like, it'll be more secure now.